Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on episode 6 of Chainsaw Man, and I'm pretty excited for this episode because last episode we ended with this paradoxical spatial, we're trapped on the 8th floor, what do we do? It's Aki and the rookie squad, Denji and Power, and they've been sent to go find this piece of the Gun Devil, who I'm sure the Gun Devil is like the big bad of the entire series. I could be wrong, I don't want spoilers. But we're going to talk about the Gun Devil and some things left out in the comments that I have from episodes 4 and 5. So, and get into that before we dive into this episode. Taizen talks about how cone is the Japanese onomatopoeia for what sound a fox makes. And it's kind of cool because the ED at the end of episode 3, the episode before cone makes an appearance, during the ED, if you go back and listen to it, every time that Aki has his hand like this, when he does this, it goes cone. And it's like, oh, that's a cool little tie-in. I like it. I like it a lot. Sam Mala, as well as Matthew B, talked about how the prank that Aki was mad at, which he had every right to be mad at, apparently Fujimoto confirmed it during a live tweeting of episode 5, where he's like, oh yeah, I never really talked about that. So what the prank was is that either Power or Denji put poop underneath Aki's nose, and when he woke up, it was there. That's not a prank. That is cruel. And how Aki let them leave the house alive is the biggest mystery of this show. In all honesty, I would have gone straight to Makima and been like, okay, we're done. It was a great run. I tried it, but I've decided to move on. But yeah, apparently that was the prank. Now the question is, Fujimoto did not confirm whether it was Denji or Power's poop that was under Aki's nose. I'm going to say it was Power's because I feel like Denji, based on the relationship him and Aki had in the apartment before Power got there, I feel like Denji would be like, oh, this is, maybe we shouldn't do this. And Power would be like, let's just do it. And then does the thing. And then Denji's like, oh, okay. Like, I feel like it was Power's feces, but also Denji, how? She was probably like, I'll let you squeeze my boob if you let me do this. And he was like, okay. So, oh my gosh, that's just ridiculous. But thank you, Sam Mala. Thank you, Matthew B. Anonymous 182, as well as Alicia Colley, talked about the Gun Devil and that the manga illustrated just how many deaths happened and the amount of time it took. So they broke it down by country. And I was like, okay. Fujimoto did separate the US from Hawaii, which, why not? I guess it's showing the trajectory of where the Gun Devil went. But apparently it went to the US. It was in the US for 124 seconds and killed 548,012 people. It was in Japan for 26 seconds and killed 57,912 people. Canada got a brief reprieve of just 7 seconds. Canada just had 7 seconds and 8,481 deaths. Hawaii had 0.4 seconds and 780 deaths, meaning it just zipped right by it. China was 37 seconds, 316,932 deaths. The Soviet Union, which speaks to the time and place this was happening at, was 210 seconds and 155,302 deaths. Mexico was 2 seconds, 6,088 deaths. And India was 15 seconds with 29,950 deaths. So this Gun Devil moves insanely quickly and kills insanely fast. And Makima's like, Denji, you got this. I'm like, that Gun Devil sounds terrifying. And how does that even work? How fast this thing goes, what we're doing, like fast as a speeding bullet is what it sounds like. Don't like it. Nope, not a fan. That just those numbers and that quick amount of time made me go, oh, this is terrifying. So we've set up our big bad. And the funny thing is the big bad is very ominous and mysterious and shrouded completely in mystery. We just have this little piece of it and little fragments of lore around him, and we're supposed to go with that. Okay, sure. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting, so thank you for pointing that out. To Goat Ta 27 talked about the ED references in episode 5. The ED references being like the four horsemen of the apocalypse. We have End of Evangelion with a giant head floating in LCL fluid. That's all I'll say. Michelangelo with the sculpture Pieta, the Mona Lisa, as well as MC Escher's art style with the paradoxical Penrose stairs. I knew from enough, like I did art minor for a brief hot second, and so I knew the Penrose stairs, but I couldn't think of the name of them. And then as soon as they said Escher, I was like, oh, yep, that's right. So yeah, very, very cool. I like all of that. And then Archangelus talks about how Denji's first positive role model is probably Aki. Because yeah, the other male role models that Denji's had so far have been the Yakuza and Aki. So it's really crazy that the first positive male influence in Denji's life at this point is Aki, who's like, why am I stuck with you? So I thought that was really fascinating. I liked that a lot. And honestly, Denji's had no female presence in his life up until now. So having Power, Himeno, Makima, all these women characters around him at once, it's a bit overwhelming for our poor guy. Right? And then non-binary Zhut Lung talks about how Fujimoto was told that they needed to draw the internal organs less gory because it was too much for the manga. I'm like, when the editors are telling you to be less gory, like that's pretty crazy. So Fujimoto made the intestines in episode 4 look very comical, but it kind of fits because it's a devil, so it almost seems kind of fantastical, so it works really, really well. And then Alexander Q and Christopher Peterson noted a couple things real quick before we start. Alexander Q talks about, like, is power, we've talked about, is power, just a devil inhabiting a corpse? Is the corpse a prop? Is it its own thing? And Alexander Q is kind of like, well, is power, like, this fiend, is it a new entity in itself? And the corpse is just the shell harboring this entity, kind of like a body has a soul sort of situation, and it's its own thing? I don't know, because there were fiends back when Denji first fought the zombie devil, but I feel like the zombie devil, the fiends tied to it were more because of its power too. So I don't know. Are fiends new creations? It's that brings like the world building. I'm excited to see where we go with the world building because it seems like there's a lot it could do with it, and I'm going to be curious to know more. And obviously I don't want spoilers from the manga, so we'll see what happens. And then Christopher Peterson noted about just female characters and using sexuality. And we had a big long discussion in the comments about this. And the idea, here's my thing. And I feel like I watched a few, I only watched one of the reaction to this episode, the episode before this one. But I've heard people talk about reactors. There were a few people in the Discord saying that some reactors were like all about Makima's, sexiness and sexual advances towards Denji. And it is kind of awkward because Denji is not only extremely innocent and naive, but he's technically a minor and Makima is not, to our knowledge. But here's my thing. I feel like with characters like Power, it's hard to discern because is Power even female? Do devils identify themselves? We assume they have romantic relationships, but do they identify with gender? That part's kind of unclear. So I'm like, with Power, we're gonna put Power here. Power is acting like a female character because she knows Denji will respond to it. So Power asserting their sexuality, it's like, what even is their sexuality? So we'll put Power over here in a corner for now. With Himeno very much is asserting their sexuality, but they are under the awareness that they know they're using it to gain intel. And Aki is quite aware that Himeno is using her sexuality to gain intel as well. The audience is clued in on it as well. And yeah, I could see someone taking issue with that and the fact that Denji doesn't really have any, like, female character relationships that don't involve them imposing their sexuality on him. I can totally get the criticism with that. Absolutely. With Makima, I find it fascinating because it makes Makima a villain. It makes Makima a villainess. She's using her sexuality on this innocent child that knows no different. And it's like, yeah, that's amazing, but that doesn't make her a good character. No, it makes her a villain. And I'm like, okay, let's go with this. Let's make Makima a villainess. I'm here for it. Because that's kind of what that attitude suggests, that she's a master manipulator and she knows exactly what she's doing. And I'm kind of on board if it makes her, kind of a bad guy. Sure, let's go with it. But my thing is, and I told Christopher Peterson this, that as a female viewer and a reactor and a female person that reads shonen like this, I'm actually totally fine with some women asserting their sexuality as a form of empowerment and to use it and it not be for the male gaze or for a man's attention romantically. Do it. I'm like, fine. I've read so many shonen where female sexuality has been for the benefit of a male character and this is for their own benefit. Go for it, girl. Like, you do you. But I do agree that it is uncomfortable to see Makima take advantage of Denji and know she's taking advantage of Denji. Because that's the thing with Himeno. Himeno doesn't realize how Denji really is. She doesn't realize how innocent Denji is. She may know by the end of this adventure, but she doesn't know right now. So she assumes that Denji is kind of like, you know, tongue-in-cheek playing around. And Aki kind of knows, no, Denji's kind of an idiot. He doesn't understand this. But Makima, she knows exactly what she's doing. And if you think it's problematic, it is. And that's what makes her character fascinating to me, is like, yeah, this is a problem. And so I'm curious to see what is going to happen with it. That's kind of what I get excited about. I'm not excited about Makima expressing that sexuality against Denji. I'm excited to see where it takes us. So that was a really long-winded rant. We've talked for 10 minutes. I think we need to go ahead and start episode 6. So I'm excited for this episode. I hope you all are too. But thank you guys so much for the comments. I really appreciate it. But we're not going to waste any more time. We're going to dive right into episode 6 and see what happens in this creepy hotel on floor 8. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. So what a weird episode. Man, what a weird episode. So Himeno's pretty flawed. I like Himeno's character, but she is, this episode was really all about, in the weirdest way, Himeno and Aki in the strangest ways. And honestly, Himeno is very curious. I'm going to put Himeno right up here. The whole time the ED was going, all I could think of is like, Himeno is such a very odd character. And I'm trying to like place her and like how to break her down. She's very complicated and interesting, right? So we're gonna have her and we have Aki and what we know about them as characters. This entire plot of this episode was breaking down these characters to like their base level of what they're concerned about, what they're worried about, and getting little bits of lore. We didn't get a lot with Arai, but we did get a little bit with the girl, and I'll get her name in this. But obviously we have Power. We're gonna put Power up here. Power just wants a Nobel Peace Prize. A Nobel Prize, right? Okay, and then I want to put Denji on here, obviously. To have Denji and Power. There are our devils in this. The Eternity Devil. I like that there's an Eternity Devil. That's a lot of fun. And then we obviously have Arai and the girl, who I'm going to get her name. Is it? It's not, oh gosh, we'll get her name in a minute. I always forget her name. I forgot her name in the last episode in this one. But Himeno is interesting because she's kind of like a mentor figure to Aki. And the last episode set her up as being like the seasoned veteran, that she gets the partner and she's like the old cop that gets the new cop and he's fresh and impressionable. And we start to see like at the start of this episode, like she's trying to peer pressure him into smoking to like share that with her. But she's quite flawed and she's kind of, it's an interesting dynamic. And I don't see this a lot in stories where you have a young impressionable character who actually is pretty well-to-do. Aside from Aki like seeking revenge against the gun devil, Aki's pretty well put together, like really super calm, super collected, leaderly, like has a pretty well-balanced head on his shoulders. And Himeno's the one who's kind of a hot mess, but she's the one that's lived. So, and it says that the best devil hunters are the ones that have a screw loose. And that's kind of how she figures that she survived all this time, is that she's kind of one of the kooky ones. And Aki, she says that he has a screw loose too, but it's funny, Himeno, she's quite flawed and has a lot of issues herself, it seems, without us even going into details with her character. And she relies on Aki for stability. That's the thing. She does not have it put together at all. When she constantly asks what he's going to do, she kind of has this vibe to her of like, I don't know why I'm still alive, but I am, and I have to deal with it. And what am I going to do, Aki? You're the level-headed one. What do we do in all this? And she very much is codependent on Aki. Like, she was like, don't you die on me. Like, I can't go on like this. So she has a lot of flaws. She is basically she's codependent on Aki. She tries to peer pressure, which it works, peer pressure him to smoke, kind of to share in that activity, to have something, some kind of commonality, to share in that activity there, that smoking. And he takes it on and smokes the same cigarettes that she smokes. So there is a little bit of mutual there. Like, does Aki connect with Himeno? Obviously, we can say they connect through smoking, but how strong, I guess they've been partners for 3 years. How strong is their bond? I mean, Denji calls it out. Denji's like, indirect kiss. Like, he's like an audience member. Denji would be, I want to watch a whole channel of Denji just like doing commentary on shoujo manga. I want to see Denji react to Nozaki-kun. I want to see that, because he'd be like, indirect kiss, there's this, there's that. Like, Denji is just pointing it out, right? But Aki doesn't seem to even care. Him and Himeno have like this bond where I'm like, how deep is that bond? Like, these two have that. Is it more than just mentor-mentee? Is it more than that? This episode kind of leads you to think it might be more than that, but I don't know. But yeah, Himeno, she's just constantly, she also seems to have this fear of being alone. And that kind of is why she peer pressures him to smoke. That's why she constantly is asking him what to do. She tells him not to die. She has this fear of loneliness. Right? And Aki's main thing is he just wants revenge. Revenge on the gun devil. That's what he wants. That's his primary. The thing about Himeno that we don't know yet is, what is Himeno's motivation? Why is she a devil hunter? Why'd she get wrapped up in this business in the first place? What's going on with that? With Aki, it's very clear why he's doing it. He's doing it strictly for revenge because he lost his family. Now the girl, and when we get her name here in a little bit, she makes the comment that she did it for her brother so that her brother could go to college. But she doesn't get that option. Her options, which this episode gets real grim real quick, is that in this world her options were to be a devil hunter or a sex worker. That adds we just talked about women using their sexuality in this profession and in this world. Well, maybe in this world they don't have a lot of options. So that adds a whole nother layer to it, that is like Makima and Himeno, them being devil hunters and working for this association. There are other alternatives. It's like, we don't know a lot about the world building in this world. We're getting little bits and pieces as we go. It seems very much like our own world, but obviously there are differences. There are devils here. So I'm like, is part of the world building in this that the female characters, their options primarily, if they don't have another standard job, is that to get money, they could become a sex worker or a devil hunter. And now obviously not every woman in this world has just those two options, because we see people on the street clearly not sex workers and clearly not devil hunters. So those aren't the only two options. But for a family that maybe is strapped for cash and doesn't have a lot of financial opportunities, they seem like her family seems like they could only put one of the children through college. They chose the son, and then her option is, since she can't go to college and get a job unless maybe she marries somebody and becomes like a housewife, her options are she could be a devil hunter or she could be a sex worker. That adds a layer to things. It adds, and it does make Makima's use of her sexuality more interesting. It adds a little bit of a question about Himeno. It just makes you think as the audience member, okay, this is the circumstance these characters are in and how they got there, so what do we do with that, right? It just adds another layer to it, and it's like little crumbs, little tiny crumbs that we get throughout this. Also, we get a little bit of crumbs on Aki and how his devil contract works, right? But this one girl, she freaks the fudge out. The one girl, we're gonna get her name in a second. Kobani. There we go. I was like, I always forget her name. Kobani. She has her and Arai, they have a mental breakdown. Nope. He has a panic attack. And suddenly Aki's words about how the rookies don't last long, that it makes much more sense, right? Which, although Himeno says that most devil hunters don't live long anyway. So Himeno makes a comment to Aki saying that devil hunters, they don't live long. So it's one of those things. She very much sounded like, I'm going to do an Attack on Titan spoiler real quick. She sounded like Reiner when he was telling Bertolt, he's like, well, we're just murderers with a short time left on this earth. Might as well make the most of it. That's kind of how she sounded, right? End of that spoiler. She kind of had this slang like, you know, we don't have long to live, so might as well live to the fullest, right? But again, we tie back to that whole theme of the cost of living. In order to live to the fullest, you have to have resources. And in order to have resources in this world, you kind of need to be a devil hunter. And being a devil hunter means you're constantly at risk of losing your life. So it's this weird cycle where, yeah, you're living to the fullest, but in order to do so, you're in a profession where you might not live to the fullest. It's a big paradox, right? It's this paradox, and my marker is about out. Paradox of living. And in a way, that's kind of making a commentary about our own lives. Like, you need a job to make money, and you need to make money to go have fun. But in order to have fun, you need time away from your job that you're using to make money. So it's just that perpetual cycle, right? And so I feel like Fujimoto is making a slight commentary about this through the Devil Hunters and talking about that. And it's interesting, right? Very interesting. So yeah, I like the Himeno's like, make a double peace sign, stay right there. Like just testing, Himeno's testing the water to see like, okay, I wanted to see if like Himeno was thinking, okay, did time go back or go forward? I like that she says, well, shit. I love that as soon as she says, well, shit, Kobani like freaks out even more, right? And just can't stand it. And Aki's like, okay, we need to figure out what's going on. We need to figure out what's the deal with the devil. And that's when he goes into the room and figures out. It's really cool. The visuals in this episode are great. Like showing like the rooms through the windows, like just the spatial distortion and everything's kind of surreal. It definitely is a mind trip, and it has this definite feeling of cabin fever. Like they're all just trapped there, right? And it's weird because time stops everywhere else, but for them it keeps going. It's very scary and trippy, and it's very easy to see. Like this devil, the Eternity Devil, is trying to cultivate this fear that it feeds off of, right? And the reason why I think it wants Denji dead, not only because it maybe fears the chainsaws, but because Denji's not afraid of the devil. The Denji is not afraid. Now, whether that is his naiveness or just Denji's personality, where he's like, Denji's like type C minus, where he's so chill, it's to the point of naiveness. Like Denji's just not afraid of the devil or anything. The other devil hunters, they're freaking out, but Denji's like, it could be worse. I've been in worse situations. I was hacked up to bits and then Pachito put me back together. I've had worse. Like, you know, he's just kind of like not too worried about it. But Aki, I like that he instantly puts some things together. Like the fact that the rooms are all connected and the fact that the clocks don't stop after 8:18. It's really freaky. And he's like, I figured as much. Yeah, everything. We're trapped on the 8th floor. Oh, man. It's great. So, yeah. So, we get past this OP here. All right. And so, this is the devil's doing. I like that everybody's just sweating. Like, the animation just says everybody's sweating. Kobani's, like, just freaking out. They can't go to a different floor. Power looks kind of pensive. And Denji's just yawning. He's like, whatever. He's like, the elevator's improbable. So they can't use the elevator. There's no way outside the windows or doors. They're just trapped there. They can't go through the ceiling vent or anything like that. Okay. And then Denji, here's the thing about Denji's character too. Denji is surprisingly kind of perceptive, which is just like the most bonkers thing, is that he's kind of perceptive. He sort of figures out things as we go. And the thing about Denji's character is he seems like he's not freaking out. He's kind of going through the motions and letting everybody else work things out. But then he's thinking for himself. Like he says, well, maybe it's Power's fault. It's because Power killed that devil. And Power's like, what'd I do? But there is something to that. Because we've seen that when the devil gets hurt, it gets bigger, right? So it was kind of Power's fault initially. They could have been trapped on the floor to begin with. Once they got on the 8th floor, they could have automatically been trapped there. But I think Power could have exacerbated it. He could have died while using the power to keep us trapped. And she's like, well, you commanded me to kill him. And he's like, no. And Aki says, no, a devil's powers are released when they die. That can't be it. So Aki gives us some world building, which we'll put down here. the idea that a devil's power, it goes away upon death. So it will, once it ceases to exist, so will its power. So that's important to note. And Aki's all very straightforward as he says this. And so Himeno asks about the bullet. Is it reacting? And he says, no, it's not anymore. It's gone still. And Himeno comes to the conclusion like, yep, the devil was the bait and we bit hard. We came right to the devil and right into its trap. And it said they were in its stomach, right? That the eternity devil, there at the 8th floor is the stomach. Well, Denji has made a habit of breaking out of things' stomachs, so what can we do? I wonder if that ties to the OP when Denji, like, claws his way out of the stomach and out of the little marble or whatever in the OP. I wonder if that's going to be, like, the stomach of this eternity devil. Creepy. But, yeah. So, basically, I just love that Denji's curled up in the bed, and so Himeno makes the comment that we've never seen a devil try something so clever before. So, they're used to dealing with very non-intelligent devils, like kind of surface level. And then we have, Power and Denji right there. I like that Power and Denji this whole time are like glaring at each other on the bed. And Arai says, won't other devil hunters show up to help? And Himeno's like, well, they could, but they're going to end up stuck either on the same floor with us, or they could be killed through other means. I do want to make note, Denji was a gentleman, and he took off his shoes. Before getting in bed. He was a gentleman enough to do that. So good on you, Denji. Good on you, sir. But yeah, Himeno's like, we better hope they don't fall into the same kind of trap or they're screwed like we are. And that's when Kogeni is like, we're all going to die here. She's like, this is not good. She's like, we're going to starve to death. I was waiting for a cannibalism joke, but we never got it. And Arai's like, hang in there, Kogeni. He's like, come on, didn't you become a devil hunter to send your brother to college? And she's like, they forced me to do it. My parents are set on my older brother going to college since he's the gifted one. So they made me get a job. And it was to become a devil hunter, or a sex worker. Which is disturbing, right? That those were the options that she had available to her. Because she wasn't as smart, seemingly, as her older brother. So that establishes like that she came from a poor family. She's like, I wanted to go to college too. A lot of the animation in this episode, like a lot of the facial expressions, a lot of the humor, it felt very much like some of Fujimoto's one-shots. Like it felt like Look Back. It felt like Goodbye Eri. Like there was a lot of moments in here with the animation stuff that I was like, wow, this feels like Fujimoto. And that's kind of cool, I guess, as a mangaka, if you start to have a style that's known. This episode kind of showcased it. It felt very much... This episode was very different than the last episodes we've had. The last episodes have felt like Fujimoto not imitating other styles, but kind of going along with some of the tropes and playing with them. But this episode felt like Goodbye Eri. It felt like Look Back. It felt like it had an air of difference to it. Like it was definitely Fujimoto's flair, like starting to come out. Which I like. I like that he's making this all his own. Because, yeah, this is just a devolution of a breakdown of everyone's psyche in this episode. And how do they handle the stress, right? How do they handle the stress? For Himeno, she relies more on Aki. She starts to rely more on him when she's stressed. So she's codependent. She needs him to, like, calm her down. Aki gets hyper-focused and starts to, like, view the mission, that's the way I'm going to relieve my stress. Power's way of dealing with stress is just chaos. Like, she's feeding off of this. That's the thing. She kind of gets drunk on the chaos because she's a devil. She's a fiend. She kind of gets drunk on the chaos where she's just, like, going crazy because everybody's getting all freaked out. Denji, kind of like Aki, remains calm, but unlike Aki, he's not focused. He's just very nonchalant. He's just kind of being an observer. He's soaking everything in like a sponge before he makes any decisions on what to do, right? Arai and Kobeni, they have panic attacks. They just have a complete mental breakdown. They can't do it, right? They just freak out. And then the part where Power starts to laugh and cry, it's because she's a devil. She's feeding off of this fear. And Arai gets mad at her, but Himeno's like, no, she's like getting drunk off of all this. Devils love fear. And so when you get scared, you're giving them what they want, sweetie. And then she's like, but I am scared, and power just can't hold it in. And Aki's like, the clocks have been the same for a while now. Every room it's 8:18. And yeah, the little ticker hand doesn't move. Ooh, it's like time has stopped. That's why they can't go anywhere. Time's frozen there on the 8th floor. Mm-hmm. And so everybody's just kind of like, oh. And then you see Denji, who's been under the covers the whole time, kind of worm his way up like a damn dog. I've seen Huckleberry do the same thing where he comes out from the covers and is like, oh, here I am. Like, yeah, Denji just like crawls his way back up. And he's like, oh, then we can sleep all we want, right? And everybody's like, what? He's like, so we can sleep, right? And he's like, how stupid are you? We might be trapped here forever. And he's like, oh, well, I mean, we might be, but we might not be too, you know? I like Denji's like, why? How do you guys know the rules? How do you know how this works? Denji's like, we don't know. We don't know, but what I like about this moment is that on the surface, it seems like Denji's just being kind of contrary. But what it is that Denji's like, we don't know what's going on, but why don't we take advantage? Take advantage and find a positive in the madness. Because he's like, yeah, we could sit here and freak out. That's not going to solve anything. We're just going to freak out even more. He's like, we don't know how this is going to end up. We don't know how the rules work in this scenario. He's like, but he's like, wake me up when you figure it out. He's like, this bed is freaking sweet. It'd be stupid not to sleep in it. He's like, I owe the devil for this nap. And again, Aki's like looking at him like, so Denji's like, look, this devil's giving us a chance to recoup. I'm going to take a nap. Catch you guys later. I'm going to recover myself while we try to figure this out. Like, yeah, he's just like, let's make a positive out of this. Let's take advantage of the situation. And then it's thrown us a bone unexpectedly. Let's just run with it. Of course, no one else does. Denji's the only one that takes advantage. And he literally falls asleep. And Aki's just like, I feel like Aki realizes in that moment that he knows that Denji is kind of like a pure soul in the oddest of ways. Somebody in the comments was like, he's just a pure horny soul. It's like, yeah, you know. But yeah, but that's kind of the thing is that Aki's like, okay, Denji, you're a baka. But yeah, they're all just like, what the hell? He actually is asleep. So then when Denji wakes up, though, things have kind of just gone awry, right? So the thing about it is that when Denji's asleep, everything goes wrong. Even more so, right? And I feel like that's like the commentary when the shonen protagonist like leaves the plot or like falls asleep or isn't there, things get worse. Things go from bad to worse. And that's kind of exactly what's happened. And so Denji's like, okay, well, what did I miss? And Himeno's like, aha! So he's like, did we find a way off the floor? And she's like, no, I hate to break it to you, but we have not. We found out the power and electricity are still working while you were asleep. And we found all this food that was left over from the guests who left it behind. So we've got some food. And she's like, everybody's really worn out, though. And so Aki has been searching for the devil nonstop. Like, he just keeps going. He won't listen or take a break. All right. Arai was helping Aki at first, but then he locked himself up in another room to have a panic attack. She's like, so he's freaked out. He's useless. Himeno is just freaked out and tried to drink toilet bowl water, so I knocked her out. And then the fiend, Power, he's like, what happened? I like that she's concerned about Power. He's like, what's going on with her? And so then we cut to Power, and Power says, given that there's nothing else to do, I've decided to win the Nobel Prize. What? Once I've earned such glorious esteem, the humans will all kowtow to me. And he's like, oh, she's basically just herself. I love that he's like, I feel like Himeno thought that Power had gone crazy, and Denji's like, no, this is her all the time. This is really just her on a normal day. She's kind of crazy. It's fine. So she thinks that she wants the Nobel Prize. Oh my God. Yeah. She's like, once I've heard this glorious esteem, the humans will kowtow to me. and with the Nobel Prize as my foothold, I shall ascend to the Prime Minister's throne. And what better way to ensure human suffering? Like, her becoming the Prime Minister will allow human suffering to continue. Like, she's just babbling nonsense. My first act will be passing 100% sales tax. Like, it's just like the most devilish thing she can think of is 100% sales tax. Oh my God. And then she's like, oh, she's always like that. Oh, okay then. It's the funniest thing in the whole episode. And then she's like, oh no, she's not going crazy. She's just always like this. It's fine. I'm like, oh my God. And so then they're like, let's take turns watching Kobeni and Arai. I couldn't use the bathroom when it was just me. Oh my God. But basically, poor Arai, they're just sitting there like freaking out. And I like that Himeno sits on the ledge of the window, but it's going into the other room smoking the cigarette and being like, this is my last cigarette. But then she's like, well, this is my last one. And he's like, I like that Himeno seems like she's not too stressed, and Power is like, I'm bored by how little this upsets you. Like, Power's expecting to freak out more. And she says, I can take it easy because Aki's working hard. Again, she relies on Aki in times of stress. And so that, like, alleviates it off of her. And so she's like, the nicotine helps too. I've got to have a port in a storm, right? Life is sweeter with a little bit of dependence. So yeah, I like that line. Life is sweeter with a little dependence. I like that kind of because it's her saying like it's okay to rely on others, right? It's okay to rely on others. And that's again, her character is so interesting because usually a mentor character would be like, oh, don't rely on others. Be yourself. Do it all for yourself. Himeno's not like that. Himeno's like, no, it's good to be dependent sometimes and to have to rely on others or something else to kind of anchor you. She's kind of like, no, it's fine if you have to have an anchor. That's totally normal, which is not of something that you normally get, right? Especially from like a heroic character. But again, Denji's perceptive. He notes that those are the cigarettes that Aki smokes, and he wouldn't notice that unless he'd been paying attention. And she's like, oh, that's because Aki learned about the flavor of cigarettes from yours truly. So then we see the air blimp, right? We see the Zeppelin going by, which is curious. The Zeppelin there. And then she tells Aki that he should smoke. And he says it's bad for your bones. And she's like, you should start. It's great for socializing. And she says that as they're the only ones there, right? And then Aki, of course, says, I'm not here to make friends, as he makes friends, right? Not here for friends. But that all gets turned around in this episode, right? That whole phrase that Aki's been saying the whole time of, I'm not here to make friends, this episode completely shatters any illusion that is possible. As if we already didn't know that as the audience, and that's when she says that, let me guess why you joined the public safety, to kill the gun devil. And I love, he has no right to have his hair look that gorgeous in that shot. There is no reason for Mappa to animate him so beautifully, but they do. And she says everyone who signs up with a chip on their shoulder is the same. So we get a little bit of lore here too, that the public safety is the only one with access to the gun devil pieces, right? Is that what she says? She says, Himeno says that since only public safety is allowed to hold on pieces of the gun devil's flesh. That's curious. Why them? Why are they the only organization of devil hunters that's allowed to have the gun devil flesh? What's that all about? Okay, that's like another little tiny little crumb of lore, right? So of course, the ones that want revenge on the gun devil, they join there and are after that as well. So, I feel like Makima could be using that as well with Aki, and her getting Denji to be all about killing the gun devil is another way for Makima to get Aki to get more over to Denji's side. It's fascinating. There's something there, but that's so curious that the public safety is the only one allowed to have pieces of it. Curious, because we've established there's several organizations, right? Devil hunters die young anyway. You might as well smoke. Yeah. You know what she reminds me of? She reminds me of on Rent. There's the musical Rent. She reminds me of the girl. What's her face? She's the one that Roger likes. She's an enabler. That's what she is. Yeah. No, Aki Himeno is an enabler. An enabler to Aki. She is. Oh, what's her name? It's they sing a song about lighting a candle. It's Roger, and she's like a junkie. She's got problems. I wish I could remember her name. Rosario Dawson plays her. It'll come to me sometime. And so then Aki says, she says, I'll hold you to that you say you're not going to die anytime soon. It's a pain in the ass when your partner dies. And then we cut straight from that to her getting slapped, right? And her getting slapped, and she doesn't even look, she just looks sad. She doesn't look surprised, she just looks sad. And apparently the girlfriend of one of her partners slaps her. Like it's her fault, right? But Aki makes a note, he says that the only reason he's like, they took their anger out on you because there wasn't a devil to take it out on. Like they got mad at you because their partner was dead, but it's not your fault that they're dead. And Aki getting mad on her behalf, right? And honestly, he looks a little bit taller than her here, but later he looks even more taller than her, like he grew up a little bit. She's like, she was my old partner's girlfriend. It happens a lot. You get issues with family and friends of dead partners. And she's had 6 so far. She's had 5 dead partners. Like they can't do anything to get back at the devils, so they take it out on me. I just consider something that comes with the territory. And the thing about Aki is he never shows his emotion, right? He rarely shows his emotion. I say never. He rarely shows an emotional response, right? Because when she says that, he just takes off. He says he was super pissed, but you wouldn't know it looking at him. He just takes off to put the gum on her clothes, right? He takes off and does that for her. But then she says, and she's like, what did you do? And he's like, you shouldn't just sit back and take being treated like that. There's no need for you to feel guilty. And in that moment, he seems taller. Like he stands up taller. He's like, there's no reason for somebody to do that to you. You shouldn't feel bad for yourself. And in that moment, it's like, that part made me go, okay, does Himeno, is this more than just a mentor-mentee? Is this the moment where Himeno was like, maybe I like you more than just my partner? Maybe we should be partners. That moment, I was like, she likes him more than just being a friend. He's like, so I got some payback. It serves her right. She's going to waltz around without realizing there's a wad of gum on her clothing. And this part, like when she smiles, it just feels Fujimoto. It felt Goodbye Eri. It did. The humor, the message of it just felt like something Fujimoto did in his one-shots. And then they go to the restaurant. And she said, there's something my master said. Devils don't fear devil hunters who are strong or brave. Right? Because here's the thing. Yeah, I like this idea that devils, they're not afraid of strong or brave devil hunters, because I feel like those types of people are very, like, being brave is an emotion that I think you can break pretty easily, right? And being strong is subjective. But the ones that are crazy, you don't mess with crazy. And so maybe that's what they're like, because crazy, strong and brave is usually tied to a motivation, to a reason, to a sense of justice, something like that, some kind of moral and ethical code, right? But the things that devil hunters have to do sometimes goes beyond stuff that's moral or ethical, or at least it seems to be that way. And so if you're crazy, though, and you got a screw loose, then sometimes the morals, there's a lot of gray area there, like with Denji. And then the devils can't control your fear. So that's interesting, right? That she says, they fear devil hunters who have a screw loose. Which I think is why you'll survive a long time in this job, Aki. And he's like, was that an insult? I'll eat your ramen tofu if you don't want it. And then she says, I want you to have the cigarette, just one. And he's like, it's not smoking. It's bad for your bones. And she says, I wish you would. I get the feeling we're going to be together for a while. Suggesting that, come on, it's a social activity. You want to smoke with me, right? I don't like that she enables and peer pressures him to smoke, because it is really terrible for you. But I like the symbolism that them smoking together means that they expect to be around each other for a while. Oddly enough. Ironically enough, because like he said, smoking could shorten your lifespan. So, and then he says, just the one. And then the way that they look at each other, I'm like, nah, that's not just, friends don't look at friends like that. No. And then he takes it and says, just the one. Mm-hmm. This is the first and last cigarette I ever light up. And it's not. So, yeah, that's interesting. Because then he asks if she has any smokes left. And she's like, nope, this is the last one. And so he's like, let me have it, please. And then he gets like right up in her space, like very close to her. And then she like gives it to him. And I love that Denji's like, that's kissing, no fair. It's an indirect kiss. Denji's like, no fair. And he's like, shut up. He doesn't deny it. He just says to shut up. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I've got bad news. Like he needed it to take some stress off. And he's like, I found the devil that we killed. And I love the Power's like, the one that I slew. I love what she uses. She uses like older English. It's great. And he's like, yes, it's a lot bigger now. Great. And so it says that they offer a contract. And then she's like, oh, it talked. And like, feed me the human known as Denji. Even his corpse will do. Let me eat him. If you do this, I'll let the rest of you leave in peace. Mm-hmm. You'll be free to leave, so accept the contract. And Himeno looks very worried in this moment, if you look back on her, because she's realizing that this is a contract, like it's not going to let them leave until Denji's dead. And he's like, what? And then, God, Kobani, she was ready to go. Like, you're going to have to die so that we can get out of here. Like, she's like, let it eat you. Oh my God, like, girl is freaked out. And then she's like, no. And I like that Aki's like, get out of here. Do not attack him. And he's like, that's obnoxious. He's like, can you swallow it with the fox devil? And he tries to with Cone, but Cone is outside of the hotel, so it won't work. And then Himeno is able to use her power. So here's the thing. This isn't my main body, it says. So the thing about it is that we find out that contracts are what a devil is bound to. And if it breaks it, it dies. So whatever the contract is, so if whoever breaks the contract will die. So obviously they're like, if the devil doesn't let them out after eating Denji, then it's going to die. And the devil says there that it's not their main body. You won't find my heart here. You're inside of my stomach. So essentially it is the hotel. Basically, this devil is the eternity devil. Is like, it's Hotel California, right? It's the Eagles song, right? You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. That's what this eternity devil is. Yep. The eternity devil is basically Hotel California. They are stuck there. And the eighth floor is the stomach. Well, if the stomach is down here, then if we go up to like the 10th floor, maybe that'll be the heart, right? But they're like, you can't kill me here. You're just going to give me an ulcer, basically. I have no weaknesses on this 8th floor. And we see inside the walls, like some of its veins and stuff. There's no way to survive this place apart from accepting my offer. Ugh. And then she's like, well, you're probably not going to let him go even if I do die. And he's like, you're blah, blah, blah. You're just talking. And Himeno says, no, it used the word contract. And it's a term that holds a strong sway when a devil is involved. If one side makes good on the deal, the other has to, or else. Like whichever side breaks the contract ends up dying. So we would be able to leave by killing you, Denji. And I love that Denji just looks there like he's trying to figure it out and think about it. And so then Arai's like, no, we should kill him. I love that him and Arai comes out in the blanket, like his security blanket. We can come up with a plan once he's dead and we're out of here. We're all going to end up starving otherwise. Devil hunters are legally allowed to make contracts with devils. We should take the deal. And Aki says, no, the devil wants Denji dead, so that means that his death would benefit it. That means Denji's a threat to it. So there's something going on. We're not accepting. And Himeno's like, okay, I'm with Aki. And Power's like, I say we kill him. I love Denji's just like, hi, I'm here. She's like, my Nobel Prize will remain forever out of reach if I'm unable to leave this place. What is with this Nobel Prize? I just love that that's her new goal. That's her goal. And then she's like, what are you on about? Are you high? I'm like, oh my God. I love it. You must die for my Nobel. This humor is ridiculous. I'm like, what are we doing? Fiends can't make pacts with devils, which makes sense, right? Because a fiend is technically a devil that's spawned with a human. So, of course, it makes sense that the fiend can't make the pact. Okay. It wouldn't be obligated to let us leave even if you killed him. Okay. We're not killing Denji. We're devil hunters. We only kill devils. So, Aki, in saying that, is recognizing that Denji's not a devil. He says... basically is saying that Denji is not a devil, even though he's been saying that the whole time. He's like, no, we're not going to kill Denji. We only kill devils. Aww. I like the power. After saying she was going to kill Denji, she has her head up on her shoulder like, I didn't mean it. God, their relationship. She's like, shall we wrestle to pass the time? And he's like, you're just going to try to kill me. No. Oh, she sits there blinking like, really? Girl is crazy. Absolutely crazy. And then, yeah, so then they're just sitting there deciding what to do. And then Aki says, if we run out of options, I'll use the sword. And she instantly says, no, you won't. So the sword, okay. So that's interesting. So the thing about the sword, we established that the sword, it can kill a devil, but it takes life from its user. So that's curious. So in other words, they've made the comment that these devil hunters die young, but a lot of the civilian devil hunters were issued swords. So the swords that they're issued, are they using them knowing, willingly knowledgeable that the sword is taking their life as they speak? As they use it, they're cutting their life short. Do they realize that? I feel like they probably do. So essentially, they're just cutting their life short intentionally by using the sword to fight devils. That's fascinating. Okay. Or maybe it's just Aki's sword that takes life away from him. But I feel like maybe it would be neat if that was like the whole thing, that the devil hunters using the swords, it takes their life away. And Aki has one issued to him, but Himeno's like, no, you don't need to use it because it's going to slowly kill you. Which is fascinating again because she gets him to smoke. So it's like, what's going to kill Aki, right? Is it going to be the smoking? Is it going to be the sword? Is it going to be Kobeni stabbing him and shanking him? We don't know. It's interesting. He's like, if that thing can get us out of here, shouldn't we use it? And Himeno's like, he shouldn't use it even if we're out of options. If it comes to that, sorry, but you'll have to die, Denji. And he's like, aww. And then, of course, Power eats all of the food. Power eats all the food on the bed, because why wouldn't we expect anything less? And then Himeno, Kogeni just, goes crazy. And Power's like, he's not working with me. You're just going nuts. This is the blood fiend. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, Kogeni she just completely went nuts. And Power's just having a lot of fun with all of this. But yeah, then the devil, it gets worse. It gets bigger. It says it's the Eternity Devil, which is creepy, has the eyes. And then it starts to make the hotel, just completely, go Titanic and flip over. Until we see it, inside, almost like the elevator. The mouths just open up and there's more and more mouths. Creepy. Mm-hmm. And then we see them on the other side. And Kogeni is just like, someone kill Denji, we're running out of time. Denny, we commented in the Discord that if they made a Netflix adaptation of Chainsaw Man, they would call Denji Denny to give him an Americanized name. Oh, fun times. They're like, just feed him to the devil. And Aki's like, I'm using the sword. That's it. Are you okay with that, Himeno? And she says, no. And she holds him back with the ghost arm. And he's like, what the hell, lady? And she says, we could get out of here probably if he uses that sword. But the pact is one that takes a lot of years off of Aki's life in exchange. She doesn't want to get him used to doing that. Again, Himeno, such a weird, flawed character because she doesn't want him to get in a habit of using the sword because it takes more and more years off your life. She's like, no, I want him to live a long time. as she gets him to smoke with her. So it's fascinating. Like, she is so flawed, but she's intriguing. He's got too much to live for. I'm sorry, Denji. And Denji's just like, what the hell? And then Arai's like trying to knock him over. Like, they came up the other side, right? And Power's just cackling like, this is amazing. And Kogeni goes to like stab him. And that's when Aki breaks free from the grip. Yeah, he manages to break free and get stabbed instead. Oh. And I feel like it almost looks like a work of art, like Aki standing over him. And Denji's like, what the hell, man? And he got stabbed in the side. So, I mean, 'tis a flesh wound, but it went in pretty deep. It went in pretty deep. I'm like, and he's bleeding all over the place. And Himeno, being the one that's like staring at him getting stabbed, he's like, he might be a piece of shit that deserves to be stabbed a time or two. But he wants the gun devil dead. He's trying to help him. He's like, I can't kill it by myself. So in the craziest way, Aki's like, I kind of am with Makima, and her strategy is like, I can't kill the gun devil. Denji wants to kill it. I'm putting my belief in him. Somehow he can kill this thing that can move the speed of sound. Sure. He's like, to do that, I need devil hunters with guts to fight it. And Denji's like, what the hell, man? Denji's like, I didn't ask you to sacrifice yourself for me. And so he's like, I need a devil hunter that's crazy too. And Denji's the one to do it. The more, the better. Even if it costs some of my own life. I'm not letting Denji die. And Denji's like, Power, you're the blood fiend, right? And he's like, can you keep him from bleeding out? And she's like, well, I only have total control over my own blood. But she does say, she's like, I could do it. The blood of others is kind of a challenge. But I suppose I'd need a new cook if Top Knot died. This is rather interesting, right? Because Denji essentially, he got Power to do something for him, right? He convinced Power to help save Aki. Yeah. She like has had no interest in helping anybody this entire episode. She's been going crazy about it. But Denji's like, he's like, Power, you can help, right? It shows that Power respects Denji. As much as she like plays along and wants him dead and maybe intentionally does want him dead, she respects him. So that's fascinating. And Himeno like watches this whole thing like this fiend, this devil is actually listening to another human being. Like, so she respects Denji. Like, she makes the excuse that she doesn't want Top Knot to die because then nobody will be able to cook. But she's also admitted that she lives off of blood, so I gotta have a little choice. And Himeno's like, what is happening? And then she sees the crow on top of the tombstone and sees his wound in the blood and sees, like, the crow's leaving the partner she's left behind. And she's like, what do we do? She's like, and she has a panic attack. She's like, Aki, what do we do? And then Himeno's like, it's not my, or Kogeni is like, it's not my fault. Again, we have another character saying it's not my fault, right? Oh, this is because of you. And this whole time, Denji has been contemplating, right? He looks contemplative. She's like, if you had just let it eat you, this would all be over. And Denji's like, damn it. He's like, yeah, I get it. Fine. I'll go in. Which, it's like, I guess at this point, Denji's like, all right, Aki, I'm not going to have you use the stupid sword. Power's going to stop your bleeding. You guys are going crazy. I guess that I'll just go in there and see what we got to do. He's like, I'm not going to go down smooth, though. And that's when he says, if I manage to kill this effing devil, like, yeah, then I expect to get that kiss. And Himeno's like, oh, well. And I love that Power's like, you got a plan? He's like, it's going to hurt real bad, but I'll get my chainsaws out. And then I like that Kogeni's like, chainsaws? He's like, it's scared of my chainsaws. So that's why it didn't try to kill me and it wanted you guys to do it instead. So for some reason, the devil can't hurt him. Okay? I remember it was crying about pain when it got attacked. He's like, so I'm going to make it feel so much pain, it's going to want to kill itself. And like Power's like, Well, that's a very devil idea. That seems like something the devil do. I love Aki's face in this moment. He's just like, that's your plan? And then Power's like, a very devilish idea indeed. It takes a monster to fight a monster. Clearly. And yeah, Aki's just like, and I love that look. He's like, Denji's like, I can't believe you did that for me. He's like, nobody asked you to, you asshole. He's like, I'm through with owing anybody anything. So that's Denji's thing. He's like, I don't want to owe anything to anyone. He's like, no more debts. And that ties back to him with the Yakuza. He's like, no more debts. He's like, I squared my debts away a long time ago. I don't want to owe you for anything. He's like, so if I go down there and do this, we're even. And that's it, right? I love Denji's character in this moment. Like, he's like, fine, I'll go be a hero, I guess. He's like, once we're out of here, we're even. And then he yanks it on. Yeah, yanks the chainsaw. And then dives down. Yeah, very similar to like Power coming off the roof, diving at the one devil, right? And then, yeah, going through the mouth and everything. What the fudge? And then, yeah, the Eye of Eternity and everything. And then that's all we get. Come on. But yeah, we have the bloody steps, the bloody stairs. We have the bullet and everything. This ED actually is like one of the more mellow soundtracks we've had so far. And then, yeah, we get shots from the manga, it looks like, with the different partners that she's lost. We have, it looks like that the Eternity Devil forms like a chain. Maybe that's the one from the OP. That's the chain of it, maybe. And we see Denji like severing through it. Yeah, they look like links, right? Okay. Interesting. And then, yeah, we have the bullet from the gun devil. And then we see, yeah, and it looks like it's from the manga where we see Himeno and Power looking down, and then Kogeni and then Aki, we're holding his hand, like looking down, holding his side. Interesting. And then the spiral going down. Curious. And then we have a shot of Pochita, a shot of Denji with the chainsaw, a shot of Power, a shot of Aki, a shot of Himeno with the graves, and then a shot of Makima hugging him. Interesting. Okay. And that's the episode. So, what a weird episode. It's interesting. We got bits of lore. We got some more lore about the public safety, about their relation with the gun devil, about how this world kind of works in terms of the devil hunters, possibly about the swords cutting their life short, literally, if they use them, and they use them to hunt devils. So that's interesting. About Aki, his connection with Himeno, her kind of codependence upon him, and her like obsession with keeping him alive because she doesn't want to lose another partner. And so then Power just wanting a damn Nobel Prize. Why not? And then Denji actually being perceptive and contemplative and figuring things out and then deciding to take action. All right. Okay. Cool. And then Araya and Kobeni, if they make it out alive, I'm going to be surprised, but I'm like, y'all better get some therapy sessions after this if y'all make it out. But crazy, right? Crazy. So yeah, that's all I've got for this episode. I'm really excited. Next week's episode 7. My rule of 8 stands, but we'll talk about the rule of 8 next week. But I am excited for episode 7 and to see what all we get. So anyway, I hope y'all have enjoyed this reaction discussion, and I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. So I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back next week for episode 7 of Chainsaw Man. Bye.